In this section, I would like to discuss three types of data that exist in econometrics and that we will work with during this semester: time series data, cross-section data, and panel data. For most of the semester, we will focus on the first two types of data, time series and cross-section data, and somewhere closer to the end of the semester, we will also discuss panel data. So time series data, this is a set of observations on some variable collected over time. For example, we can take Poland and collect its value of GDP over the last, let's say, 30 years. So this is annual frequency that we deal with, but there are other frequencies in time series data, for example, daily frequency, and it is mostly common for stock prices, weather reports. There's also weekly frequency, and this is mostly used when we deal with money supply figures. Monthly frequency, this is actually a very wonderful frequency because it allows us to get a broader picture of some economic phenomena, and it is very often applied to, let's say, the unemployment rate, the consumer price index. By the way, the consumer price index is used for estimating the value of inflation in a country. Quarterly frequency, this is also quite commonly used, and it's quite easy to find, for example, quarterly GDP. And annually, obviously, this is the most common one, and most of the data sets that I mentioned before, they have annual data. The second type of data, cross-section data, this is data again on one or more variables collected at the same point in time. For example, we can take the year of 2020 and take a group of countries, let's say European Union countries, and just collect the data on their GDP in 2020. So country is one of the example of cross-section units, but here I've mentioned some more, like people are also cross-sectional units, firms, companies, cities, etc. So the main difference between the previous one, time series data, is that time series is collected over time for one cross-sectional unit, and when it comes to cross-sectional data, we collect data at one point of time over a number of cross-sectional units. And panel data, this is quite easy. This is just a combination of time series and cross-sectional data. So we both have observations over some period, and we also have observations over some cross-sectional units. There are two types of panels: balanced panels and unbalanced panel. And it's very easy to distinguish between them two. When we have a balanced panel, that means that cross-sectional units have the same number of observations over time. And when we have unbalanced panel, that means that cross-sectional units have a different number of observations over time. Unfortunately, most of the economic tests that we will be discussing with you during this semester will require balanced panel, but now they have some econometricians started developing more advanced econometric tools which allow us to work with unbalanced panels as well. The reason why sometimes it is really wonderful to be able to deal with unbalanced panel is because the data availability is quite limited when it comes to certain countries. If we take the post-Soviet countries like Poland or Russia, and if you will try to get the data for any year before 1990, before the collapse of the Soviet Union, believe me, you won't be able to find any data, because they've started to collect the official statistics only after the collapse of the Soviet Union. So anything before that year is just a blank spot. However, if you check, for example, Spain or Italy, you can easily find the data even for 1960.